Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George here with our kickoff. Well, I should probably back it up a second here.
Beep, beep,
The
beep.
trailer for the Meg came out.
Yes.
Megalodon.
As we're recording this.
The
Meg hit.
The Meg hit, and everyone's watching the trailer. It looks way better than what I think a lot of people thought. It looks like the fun, cheesy, giant animal movie we've been craving.
They did the trailer right. So
Oh
they
my
were
God.
like, this is going to be cheesy fun. We're not going to take ourselves too seriously.
When Under the Sea started playing, it was,
Yeah, exactly.
it was perfect. So,
And the marketing, the poster, all that is like, pleased to eat you is fucking hilarious. So yeah.
and just them showing the sheer size of the shark too.
Yes.
It just it's terrifying. I love it. So that got us into the mood for giant animals.
Animal attack movies.
Animal attack movies. Not like kaiju, not like your Pacific Rims
Cloverfield.
and the Cloverfield and stuff like that. But giant, monsters. Because I always see in the news, it's like a 7.5 foot gator on the golf courses of Florida, and I'm like, oh shit.
Exactly.
So we have
Right.
the movie for you. So today we're gonna be talking about Rogue. Before we get into Rogue, head on over to our iTunes, hit the subscribe button, give us a 5-star review, and if you like Spotify, which is my personal favorite, head on over there, hit the green button to follow. You get all the updates. It's wonderful. You'll love it. But before we get into Rogue, we went on to the Hollow Weekly Facebook page, the private group, which is where all the cool, fun, horror, hip kids are hanging out, asking all the questions, getting all the great stuff out of their horror lives. And we said, watching Rogue, what's your favorite giant animal movie? We got a good amount of responses here. So just starting from the top here. We got Eric Taylor saying original King Kong. That was upvoted pretty highly because that's a classic. Can't go wrong there. Amy, who's in our live shows all the time, threw in a Clifford. Valiant effort, but I'm going to disagree.
Love it.
Let's see. Brandy Hamlin said Megapython versus Gatoroid. I've never seen that one, but
No, but that name makes me want to watch that.
that could be a made-up name, and I've already in my
Wait,
head.
back up to Clifford, because spoiler, in Rogue, they do the thing that we all hate. They kill the dog. So I feel like Clifford should be in Rogue too. Like,
Clifford would.
you need a
beat
dog who
the
can defend
shit
himself, right?
out of that gator, because Clifford was huge.
Right. So good answer.
That is a good answer. Jason Patrick said alligator. Vicky Gray said Croczilla. Was fun to watch with my 12-year-old son. That sounds like a fun film. T. Lee Jackson said toss-up between King Kong, Mighty Joe Young, Godzilla, and Jaws, and Gamera.
Gamera. Yeah,
Gamera.
and I love. God, I mean that blows my mind that she put in Mighty Joe Young. I gotta go watch that. It's been so long since I've seen it.
That is a good. I like that. Then we got Jaws, Big Ass Spiders, Tremors, some love for Rogue itself, Anaconda. Hey, you got to throw Anaconda in there.
Definitely.
That movie. I still think that movie holds up pretty well. And Eight-Legged Freaks.
Love it.
So that is some.
And I was looking down the list of what other movies we could. So we're planning to do a couple episodes leading up to the release of the Meg, which I think is in August, where we do like animal attack movies, where it's sort of an oversized, attack animal. And there's a couple like Backcountry. I know was one that a lot of people enjoyed when it came out, and then I love Burning Bright, which is the tiger attack movie. Which is great. So we'll probably watch that, but. We had to, as a service to you, our beloved listeners, we had to bring you the best first. So we're bringing you Rogue because this is a great animal attack movie. Just full stop.
And technically, right now, love it or hate it, Rotten Tomatoes, this film is 100%.
Yeah, which is astounding. Can you imagine if you go to like producers, you do it's a pitch, and you do like, we want to do a giant, crocodile movie. the outcome you don't expect is 100% fresh on
No.
Rotten Tomatoes and like all positive reviews on Metacritic.
While it is 100%, I looked up how much it cost to make and how much it made in the box office. It was like, that's where it gets a little grim.
well,
I think it was like
okay.
20 million and then made like 7 in the box office, which is crazy because this movie is really good.
Yeah, that's some bullshit. Hopefully it made on the back end through like Blu-ray and streaming and stuff.
I hope it's somewhere because
They got $10 from me.
they every
I contributed.
every little bit helps. So should we talk about what Rogue is? This is my first time viewing. You've mentioned it plenty of times. Finally got around to it.
Yep.
Tell them what.
Yeah, I'm
what,
excited we did.
What is Rogue?
So Rogue is everyone's calling it the Australian Jaws with a crocodile, but it's not exactly. It has some of the same beats and some of the same like where you get attached to the characters and the backstory of the people, but it's a giant crocodile movie, so that's what it is at its heart. But it's directed by Greg McLean, who did Wolf Creek and Belko Experiment, who's a really, really good director, in my opinion. And basically, you've got a travel writer who's stuck going to the Australian outback to write an article on traveling to the Australian outback and getting eaten, apparently, because that's what's going to go down here. And they go on the tour, and you get to know all the people on the tour. You get all the usual suspects for a horror movie, but they're sketched in better than like you could easily do this movie like Lake Placid or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
You could do it that way, right? But they didn't. They cared. It's beautifully shot. It's got great music, so like it's a solid thing. But you get all these people and they're on a tour, and they're doing typical tourist things. They even encounter a couple wild and crazy guys who live in the Australian outback. One of them played by Sam Worthington, who's excellent in this movie.
He's very good.
And they get sidetracked while they're on the tour by seeing a distress flare in the distance. So instead of taking the tour back, the tour guide, who is amazing, it's Rhoda Mitchell from Silent Hill, who's we'll talk about her in a second, but she says, it's my duty to respond. She radios into base. They go to track down what the flares are happening. They found like an overturned boat, no sign of human life, plenty of sign of human food,
Lots of it.
right? Or soon to be. And it's next to like this really, really tiny island. And then you end up in sort of the Shallow scenario, right? Like when she was stuck on the island, they're kind of stranded on the island. The boat's attacked by a crocodile, and then mayhem ensues.
I almost want to watch it again, just
Right?
just from me saying it. So let's jump in real quick.
Yes.
With our 60-second review. So
Yes.
that was the synopsis. Now this is what you and me both personally got out of it.
Well, I've basically done my 60
That was a
review.
60-second
Yeah.
review.
So
Well, that was a synopsis. How did you feel?
All right.
Starting now.
No, okay. I love this movie. Now, everyone who kind of like defends this movie or like tries to recommend it, they take the route of the best crocodile movie ever made, right? Because that's easy because there's not a lot and there's not a lot of competition. I think this movie deserves way better than that kind of blurb, right? I think this is a movie that really sticks with you from the opening shots. Not the opening music, which is terrible. It gets better as the movie goes on.
Yes.
But there's like some kind of weird yodeling at the beginning, which is just annoying as hell. But the whole introduction sequence, they do that great thing that that Cabin of the Woods made fun of with the gas station attendant, where you're meeting some of the locals, the people who run like the local, restaurants and whatnot. And all those characters are sketched in really well. But the thing to me is when you're doing something that's like Jaws, how are you going to make it different? And here's what they did. They took an animal. That's fine. 90-second review. They took an animal that could go on land. So that's their difference.
That's the
You're not safe. Just getting out of the water isn't safe here. This animal can jump. It can walk on land. It can track you down. The fact that they cared enough to shoot it well, have great acting, and then do a twist that was a up the ante on Jaws makes it a really solid horror film.
You perfectly timed the 90-second review.
All right.
So here's
your 90-second review.
On my mark.
Yes.
On my set. Yeah. Let's go. So as a person who loves giant monsters and creature features, this film is damn near perfect. The CGI for the crocodile looks great. The prosthetics for the crocodile looks great. All around, it's just a solid looking crocodile, which sounds weird, but growing up, I was scared of the crocodile and Hook, and he's got a clock in his mouth, and it freaked me out for some reason. But no, it was really well done. The music in the beginning.
And this movie's from 2006.
2006.
So the fact that the CGI holds up is pretty impressive.
Yeah. And the only and the cinematography is really, really, really well done. The them showing the tide coming on the island slowly disappearing is super well done. The music in the beginning sounded weird, like it sounded like cheesy horror film. But then at the end, the music was terrifying. I don't know of any other film where a score I hear in the beginning go, "Oh, this is gonna suck," and then it terrifies me. I don't think that's ever happened again.
That's how I felt about Jaws. That's how I felt about Saw, which we just talked about.
Yeah, I just by the record for the record,
I know,
I stopped it on a minute.
I know we need a dollar jar where every time I go over, I owe $1 to the podcast.
I like that. All right. So now that we have our official 60-second reviews for the people who are now probably checking out because they're like, I got.
Well, that's it.
I got that.
Yeah, but there's more. Watch
That's
this.
all, folks. Okay, so now for the ham and eggs.
Yes.
Of the film.
Yes.
I feel like just recently, I guess it's been a little while now. They had the trailer for the Crocodile Dundee reboot, but it ended up being an ad for Australia. If they tagged at the end of this film, "Come visit Australia," it would make complete. It would be. I would go. I would be like, you know what? An adventure awaits.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna risk getting eaten, but screw it. I'm gonna go.
I can't believe I've waited this long to see this movie. Like
let's be honest. I don't think so. We have a lot of people who are, giving us, messaging us, and downloading and then commenting on the episodes and whatnot. And I gather that the majority of horror fans don't know this movie exists, or if they do, they vaguely know it exists, but they haven't seen it. Right. So it's not surprising to me that you made it this long without seeing it, because I think the only person plumping for it is me, really, out of those things. But the thing to me, one of the things that's really eye catching about this is, and you see this all the time now in horror, and I feel like it's getting worse in the genre, where you have a movie with like an interesting premise and a good cast, right? I'll give you an example, even though I haven't seen it. The Forest. So The Forest had Natalie Dormer, who I think is a great actress, right? And it's an interesting premise because it's a suicide forest, and there's so many horror possibilities to do with kind of like that creepy background and etc. But they give it the most generic name possible. The marketing for it is horrible, right? And then you get one good actor in there, but then the rest of them aren't really carrying their weight or whatever. And then who cares about the writing? So they drop all the balls on it. Let's back up to Rogue. The posters are incredible. Right? The creature design is incredible. The cast is solid all the way through, right? And the writing is really, really good. Like, there were funny moments. And it was kind of relentlessly tense once the tour breaks down and they get stranded. So when you put those things together, that's what I mean, is I feel like it's better than just like we got an idea and we were trying to do a cash grab for horror fans because we know they like creature animal attack movies, right? It just felt like a whole different scenario with this thing, which I really appreciated. So that part I think is great, but I don't think this movie is the same. It gives me the same buzz that it gives me without Radha Mitchell. So we talked about this when we were. I'm probably not saying her name right. When we talked about this at the beginning of the movie, when it starts out. You have the travel writer character. He shows up. There's a great like introduction with him where he sees all the creepy newspaper clippings in the restaurant where he first lands in the
titled
outback.
Emu Better, which I love saying. Emu better. Emu better. I love
the name of the restaurant, which is classic. But yeah, so you have him, and then you have like the newspaper clippings all giving you the warnings that you expect. Like, this is this is a dangerous place to be. But then you go on the tour, and that's the thing is I feel like Radha Mitchell put in the work. You literally turned to me. We were watching this movie together. You turned to me at one point. You're like, I forgot she was an actress. You thought you were on a tour.
Yeah, it felt like planet Earth.
Yeah, you're on a real tour. Like she was super convincing. The patter that you give, like what's that thing at Disney, the where they tell the jokes?
Jungle Cruise.
Cruise, right? So it's like a Jungle Cruise scenario. She's got like the set jokes. Like there's one point where they turn to her and go, "Are there any?" One of the tourists is like, "Are there any attacks on humans by these crocodiles?" And she's like, "Only on tourists." They have that, but she's also like a legit. You can tell she's smart, she's capable, and she anchors this movie. So I think that is where it takes it the cut above from good to great.
Yeah, I just the cinematography in the beginning too is friggin' gorgeous too, and it honestly felt like in the more like as you were talking, I was going, yeah, no, I'm pretty convinced the first 10 minutes is Planet Earth 2.
Totally.
and then they stitched a horror film onto the last.
That's exactly right.
On the last stuff, but even the cinematography like throughout the rest of the film is really gorgeous, and of course being like an animal attack movie with a creature who has some domain in the water, there's going to be some of the jaws shot from below
Totally
takes, but still, no matter where you shoot those shots are always super intense, and some bad shit.
Yeah, and this is going to sound weird, but the fact that the colors were different, so like the water was really green, and there was like it differentiated it from like the Jaws feel. So I didn't feel like every time I was under the water looking up at a person that I was like shark POV.
Yeah.
Right.
But and the other thing is like with Jaws, like if there's a shark in the water, just don't go in the water. Like I'm going to go inland and never think about this guy again. I win. And I really thought the touch of them being on the island with the tide slowly coming in. And I think they have a line of dialogue in there. It's like, in a few hours there will be no island or something like that. So them setting the bar high was great. And oh my God, setting the tension in the film too was done really well. When Sam Worthington's character talks about putting a rope between.
All right, wait. So before, yes, exactly. But before, so one of the things that I noticed about this on this watch that I thought was great was because I had just recently rewatched Jurassic Park. And I love when a really, really talented, competent director like Spielberg does callbacks, sets things up, and you get them later. And I've noticed there's a lot of horror movies where they set things up and there's no payoff for it later in a lot of the modern movies where they don't care. So one of the setup things in here, which is like in Jurassic Park, one of the things that was genius was you have the chaos scientist Jeff Goldblum. And, he does his little demonstration in the car with Laura Dern where he puts the water on her wrist and it goes down one way and then it goes down the other way and he's flirting with her and like whatever. And then you have Nedry run into that pole with the sign that's got the arrow on it, and then he picks it up and the arrow is spinning. And that chaos theory theme gets tiny little callbacks all through the movie, which is, just brilliant. Someone had just pointed out, which blew my mind, because they were defending Rian Johnson with the latest Star Wars, that the Luke Skywalker's story in Star Wars starts with a hologram projection of Leia sending a distress message, and it ends with, spoiler, Luke Skywalker sending a projection of himself to help Leia.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So when you set things up like that, when you're doing callbacks to things, that just shows that it's another level of caring about what kind of movie you're making, right? So in this movie, the tourists are going along in the beginning and they're floating, and the first time you see a crocodile, the other tour boat they're not in, across the way from them in the same river, they're doing a little bait to get the crocodile to come out. And it's like whale watching. It's just mundane. You don't like, nothing's really like, they're like, oh, let's watch. And then the crocodile comes up out of the water, like right about 4 feet, and gets to the bait and then comes back down, and everyone oohs and ahs and like whatever. And then later in the movie, the scene you're talking about, they're trying to get off the island. So they tie a rope to the other side of the tree, and the rope's way higher than 4 feet until they get on it. And then it dips to exactly 4 feet, which means they're trying to escape by crawling over this rope at exactly the height we already know a crocodile can jump. Right?
So that crocodile was like 6 feet and it went 4 feet. This dude is like 35, 40 feet. So you're like, he doesn't
Right.
even need to jump. He can just look up and like.
You can just breathe in and suck you down into the air.
But just the idea of like we know the shark can go on land. We know this, but we know like one of its things that can jump up, grab you, and pull you under. Them just even talking like before they even had the rope up, just them saying the idea, I immediately got chills. I was like, oh god, no, please don't do this on this.
Yep.
But what's funny is about with that whole scene is it teases the shit out of you. It's like the people are crawling, they want them to go because the crocodile's gonna jump up and get them. But then the film doesn't. It just blue balls you. It's like, oh no, we're not doing that.
Well, yeah, but what's even cooler is, so they're on their little island stranded. Sam Worthington swims to land, spoiler, and ties the rope on the other side, and they're crawling across. But what they don't know is the crocodile's waiting over there, eats Sam Worthington, and it's at the other end of the rope. They're basically feeding themselves to the crocodile, but they don't know it, right? So just even that construct is genius to me. Like the fact that they played with our expectations, didn't pay off, like you were saying. But
I love the fact that they didn't pay off.
That's great.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like it's just like the idea, the fact that they were just like teasing you the whole time with this is what's going to happen, and then they didn't even need to do it. I think is just genius.
Yep. And they were doing that. They were showing that kind of restraint through the whole movie. They were definitely following the Jaws model of not over showing the creature. And I don't even think we you see the alligator in the beginning with the duplication of the Jaws attack, but this time it's on an ox or something.
Yeah.
And then you don't see the crocodile for a full 35 minutes, I think.
Yeah, there wasn't a death. We marked it. Like,
Right. And even when you see it, you're only seeing like a tail or like an eye, and then and
yeah,
you don't get
the
full
first death
reveal.
you see the tail go into the water, and they play it like super close, to their chest. They're not showing you
Yes.
this, and it's not until the end when it's a full on like monster fest. The end. So we should probably move on to best worst part.
Well, wait, hold on. Before we get to best worst part, I just want to say the one other thing I really appreciate about this is first of all, I can't, like, the acting really, really is good. There's side plots and characters and
Yeah.
there's some are getting like to know each other better and care about each other. Some are not, but it's the thing that you would expect from human beings in a stressful situation where the stakes are super high, like your own survival. They sort of break down, but it's very realistic. There's a little touch of stupid decision making that bothers people in horror movies, but I think they mainly sidestepped that trap. Most of the decisions they made, you believe they were making them.
They tried to make stupid decitions,
Yes.
like with the dog, and then
Yes.
they were like, "We're not."
No, and then and it ended up that sort of paid off for them later because the dog is a hero towards the end. But that I think that part is really amazing. But the thing that was really interesting to me was,
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yes, go ahead.
We're recording this episode, and I would just want George to know you're wearing a Haunted Mansion t-shirt, and in the center is the woman hanging from a rope with an alligator jumping up to eat
Yes,
her.
it's perfect. It's perfect for this.
I looked
episode.
at it, I was like, oh,
That's freaky.
Perfect.
So one of the things that's amazing to me here is that when I think back to something like Jaws or say Backcountry, right? Mm-hmm. The terrifying thing is Jaws is going to eat you, and the terrifying thing in the Backcountry is the bear is going to eat you. And when I think about how it's terrifying, like Jaws is going to eat you the way you would eat a sandwich, right? Mm-hmm. The Backcountry bear is going to knock you unconscious, then eat you at like think about Revenant, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to go through that. That's not fun. Doesn't look like a fun experience.
I read that some bears, people say to get in the fetal position. Mm-hmm. Some bears don't care. You'll be in the fetal position, and then they just start eating you.
They just don't.
Like, damn.
Some bears don't care.
Sucks,
that should have been the tagline for
some bears don't care.
So, Backcountry, call us for Backcountry. But so think about this. But basically, it's a brute force attack. Jaws is going to just bite you in half and eat you. The bear is going to knock you down and eat you, like whatever. Crocodiles do a death roll. So let's talk about this, because the death roll turns out to be, it makes several appearances, and it turns out it's one of the most terrifying things you can put on screen. Every time it happened, I literally involuntarily backed away from the screen a little bit, because it's just a terrifying way to kill people. And at the end, one of my favorite moments, actually this is probably my best moment in the movie to me, is towards the end. the travel writer character is hiding in a narrow space where the crocodile's trying to get, and the crocodile is 3 times the size of any crocodile, so it can't fit in there. It's snapping its jaws. It's trying to get to him, and it realizes it can't get into that space to get to him. And out of frustration, it does a death roll on dry land. It just rolls, and you can tell this is like a 200 million year evolutionary, like, I'm trying to bite something and I'm on a roll. And then he's trying to get to this thing and he's like, all right, I can't bite him. Step 2. And he goes to the roll. And the fact that this thing has this perfect killing, hunting combination of moves, right? Like bite and then roll, is absolutely visually terrifying.
And the sound effect for when the gator chomps and misses, it sounds like banging coconuts together. It's like it's this hollow, like, conk noise. I'll edit that in. That my conk noise is not as good as the crocodiles by any stretch.
No, it's pretty terrifying.
It sounds powerful.
Yes.
Like, which I Jaws, you don't really have that bite. You have John Williams for that, but like this film like makes that's the idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
It puts a noise to the idea.
Absolutely. And they set up in the beginning, I want to say pretty much as well as Jaws does, not to overdo the comparison. This is not as good a movie as Jaws, but the setup of in the beginning of what crocodiles are capable of, they just are salting that information in there. You know, the tour guide part, you get part of it on the tour, right? And then they start telling you, like, one of the most terrifying things is that they're like raptors for real. Like she says, if you're staying in a place in Australia next to the water where you think there's crocodiles, if you're a smoker or whatever, don't go out on your patio and smoke the same time every day, because they're studying you. They'll get to know your habit, and then they'll be out there at 6 o'clock when you go, because they're perfect hunters, right? So that notion is just terrifying, that you're somewhere where an animal is watching you and thinking, oh, come back this same time tomorrow, right? Which is really cool.
Makes me wish that alligators somewhere, or crocodiles, have like little clocks somewhere.
Wait, we already know that. The clock in his mouth.
Oh, that's right. Tick-tock croc.
Tick-tock.
This all makes sense. Crocodiles are very time-oriented.
Yes, totally.
They have been for a while. All right, so let me just... So that brings me to best and worst part.
Yes.
Let's start with worst so we can end on best.
Go for it.
A little bit of high note. So worst part for me is the beginning. I think and by worst I mean it's just the weakest part of the film. When you're getting to know the cast and the people on this tour, there's a lot of these really strange like inserts of like reactions of them that it just messes a little bit with like the pacing. And then the score in the beginning sounds really weird. I can't put my finger on what it is. It feels like a sci-fi budgeted score, if that makes any sense.
It does.
To me, that's probably the worst part, but I mean, by the end of it, the music's 10 times better. It's scary, and you care for the people on board. So they they have a sense of progression.
Absolutely,
in this film.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree.
What's your worst part?
To me, I guess the worst part is, I mean, to me, the worst part is they killed the dog.
Yeah,
because I just can't. That's just a thing that's unnecessary. And this is literally the cutest dog in the history of horror movies. Did you see the credits? He's named like Patches the Hero Dog or something.
Ah, that is cute.
It's just unnecessary. It's just savage.
The whole when he was dying, or when he went to where I knew he was going to die.
Yes.
I just thought to myself, okay, they were on set. There was a trainer with some doggy treats back there. Yep. And
well, it was yeah. You know what? I'm gonna do it. That was the worst part. It was not just the worst because emotionally I don't like it. It's also the worst because shit. Stop. Okay, it's also the worst because of how they did it. So I feel like they shortchanged the dog. So there were moments in the movie where the dog was smart. It was figuring things out. It was warning them. It found its own owner, right? And then the crocodile's rustling in the distance, and he just barks and takes off and attacks it, which was so random.
The fact that he would...
I could see if it came at them, like a dog's supposed to defend you. That's probably its instinct. But to run off and just like unilaterally like...
Just jump in its mouth.
Kamikaze itself, was just... It was an excuse to do the kind of cool effect of the eating when the crocodile came back and he was still eating the dog.
No.
And you could tell they really wanted to have that in there because they really spent some time on that. So
It looked good.
Yeah, it did look good. The effect looked good, but how they got there was pretty weak sauce.
Yeah, you know what? That was a pretty weak.
All right, what's your best?
Weak point. Best is the Hobbit. Is it the Desolation of Smaug scene? Just the entire third act of this film feels like The Hobbit, where Frodo.
It does.
Frodo's
It
in there
really
with the
does.
dragon. Because even the way
Didn't they film that shit in New Zealand? That's probably subconscious.
they're probably
Right.
close to each other. But even like so the crocodile does its shit. They find so in the beginning of the film they mention that he takes his prey somewhere, like under a log or somewhere. Like he puts like the bones of all that stuff.
Yep.
So they find themselves in his like actual dungeon.
Yep.
And when he goes to sleep, he has like a little rock he wedges himself between and sleeps, which is kind of cute. But the way he's lying there in the darkness with like a patch of light shining on his face while he sleeps, overlooking his entire lair, I thought was I love that.
Yeah, he's like in the perfect position to oversee. It's like a dragon with their gold hoard. He's just
exactly
like, right,
nothing's gonna get past him. And I thought that whole entire scene where you find our tour guide who's somehow alive.
Yeah, that bothers you. I bought that though because the lair is pretty close. They established when he killed that one guy earlier after he ate his arm that he drags you underwater and takes you to the lair pretty fast. So I'm okay with it.
I missed the fact that he was speedy about it. So he wanted to eat you later. But that whole scene where he's trying to get her out and he's trying to be as quiet as possible because there's a few shots. Like I actually got chills at a few parts during that scene, and this is when the score really was effective. It would cut to him and then sort of do like the Jaws, like lower bassy strings, just sort of like.
They hit strings with tuning forks to make the sounds creepier.
Is that what they did?
Yeah.
It worked because it was so scary. Just watching him with his eyes closed with a little beam of light hitting them with that music was absolutely fucking terrifying.
Yep.
And so that hands down is my favorite part. I could watch that. If I had to recommend Rogue to anyone, they're like, I have 10 minutes, I can't fit it in, I'd have them watch that scene.
Oh,
and
good call.
I think it would do everything they need for that film.
Good call. I'm going to cop out. My best part of this movie is that it never was just a giant crocodile movie. Like I kept expecting it to just let itself become a giant crocodile movie. I've seen so many movies where they start out and it's a strong start and then you get to like the third act and they're trying to wrap things up or get plot points, like whatever, and it just becomes that. And there was no point where I felt like they were just, that's all this is going to be. Like they stuck. They were still developing characters, even like towards the end when it really wouldn't have mattered. You're already established. We already cared about them. And they still were giving us little details about them or whatever. The one guy you were pointing out, and we can't let this episode go just for our own personal, so that we can milestone this. You predicted the shirt that was going to appear.
That was super weird.
So you can tell them about that in a second. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that character I had given up on like an hour ago, earlier in the movie, because he was just a douchebag for the whole movie. And then he comes through. Like he really they're going to use the dog as bait. And he's like, no, I've got a better idea. And what I thought of him was, even if he thought of a better idea, he wouldn't have shared it. Right? Because he was pretty selfish. He found beer floating in the fucking water, and he kept that on the down low. Kept it to himself. He's over there chugging beers while everyone else is panicking. So he wasn't really like sharing, contributing to the group, doing whatever. And then he comes through. It's a Scrooge moment.
Yeah, it was
in a giant crocodile movie, right? That's what I mean. Is it just never?
You got The Hobbit. You got A Christmas Carol.
Exactly. So it's a little bit of a cop out, but I just like that it never became Lake Placid.
No, that's I'd agree with that.
Okay.
The characters were really fantastic.
But tell people about the shirt, because it was freaky.
No, I was just so I was getting ready this morning, and for some reason I was thinking about, I was on like a nostalgic trip for some reason. Like I was thinking about, I was listening to like, classic hits from my childhood. And for some reason I was just thinking about like where I grew up in Springfield. And I remember towards the end of like before our mall really became a shithole, there was like a novelty t-shirt store really random, and it was just all novelty TV. It had dumb sayings on it. It had like Family Guy on it and all this other shit. And for some reason, I was thinking about a shirt that pointed upwards and it said the legend, or no, the man, and then then it would point down to your dick and say the legend. And I was like, I remember like some kids at school having that thing that was like dumb. And then we watched this movie, and the guy's wearing that T-shirt. And I was like,
you almost passed out.
I was like, I couldn't handle it.
Because you could live a dozen lifetimes and not think of that shirt ever again. But you thought of it.
And then I saw it
and then it shows up in a movie, which is right, exactly.
In a movie I'd never seen before. So like it wasn't like, oh, we're watching Rogue. Where did I see that?
Right,
like,
exactly.
This is my first time watching. So that was just a very strange.
And that dude's not in the trailer. That's not a thing. Like that just is a weird coincidence. That
it really freaked me out.
So if you visualize lottery tickets, let me know in the near future.
I'm going to write down a number.
Okay, good. Let's do it.
And if that plays, we'll win. All right. So that reminds me.
Yes.
We have a newer segment that we want to try. Because because of the way this film started. We were talking. And this segment is called Whose Fault Is It?
That's right.
And the idea behind this segment is who can we blame 100% that this movie wouldn't have happened if this asshole hadn't said something or done something that got everyone into trouble.
I don't know if I'm willing to go 100%, but who's majority to blame? Yeah, exactly. I want to do this for every movie we review.
Oh, we will.
Because the reason I wanted this to be a segment was you had a really interesting answer that I would have never thought of in a million years, and I've seen this movie 3 times. And then once you said it, I'm like, that motherfucker, he's to blame. Like, you totally sold me on it. So
I'm gonna put blame on the husband who decides he wants to get the camcorder out and document every little bit of his vacation in Australia. Mm-hmm. If he hadn't,
while he relentlessly hits on his wife to the point where she wants to throw him out of the boat, and says,
he pulls out the camera. She's like, "Don't film me." He's like, ugh. And then he like slides off and over the distance, and then he sees the flare.
Actually, I don't know if you remember, but when we were watching it, as soon as he came on screen, he like said 2 words, and you're like, he's gonna die. Like you were immediately like,
oh yeah, he said some dumb shit like like the wife looked back at the cute dog. She's like, "We should get a dog." And I thought you were a cat person, and I was like,
I can't wait for you to get eaten.
He's done. Right. And he was the first one to go, so I correctly called that one.
Yes.
But if he sees the flare, and then everyone's like, "Whoa, what is the flare?"
Well, he's filming in the distance, and he sees a flare, and nobody else on the boat has seen it. And then the tour guide is like, "Well, I mean, if no one else saw it, then whatever." He's like, "Wait, I videoed it." So then he goes back. And he shows them a flare, and then while they're like dithering, another flare goes off. And now because they're all paying attention, they see it, and that's when they go chase it down, and then everyone dies. And the funny thing is, if you had asked me before you said that, who was to blame here, like it would be the tour guide, it would be like, I mean, the fact but you're right, everything turned. They were just going to go back, and that was
Pierre just kept his stupid mouth shut. No, that dog would be alive.
God damn it.
So actually, it's not whose fault is it? This segment.
Who killed the dog?
Who killed the dog?
That's the new segment.
That's that for just this one. It'll go back to whose fault is it for other movies, but for this one, it's who killed the dog.
Yeah, my heart can't take that segment every damn movie.
What's funny is about that character is like he was obviously supposed to be a big douche, but there was like, I think I liked the actor himself. Like there was like after he stopped being like a creep to his wife and they got on the island, he actually was kind of redeemable, and I kind of enjoyed that, but. I would say it's either him. I kind of wanted to put blame on Sam Worthington for a little bit.
Why?
For a little bit, because they had the ticket out, right?
Oh yeah, he could have just boated up.
Yeah, and then they just dicked off.
Yeah, but what was he going to do? How was that going to play out? Even if he had because he'd circled the island playing loud music, and he was refusing to help them because he had some issues with the main character. So he didn't help them immediately, and while he was fucking around, the boat got attacked.
But if he had just,
but even if he had gone straight up, that crocodile goes on land. It goes like, I mean, that boat. Know, dude. His boat was done either way.
It was going to take him a hot minute to get up there.
You think load 14 people on his boat? Then
yep.
I refuse. He's not to blame. He's the opposite of to blame. He's the one who tied the rope and got him out of there. Look,
that rope.
He would have put about 14 of them on the boat, and then they would have gotten out, and the crocodile would have attacked the boat and eaten them all in the water. No, he's fine.
No, they would have got if they had just acted quickly.
Let me tell you who's really to blame. Besides your answer, which I agree with.
Which is correct.
Yes. Yeah, totally, 1,000%. It's invented a everlasting segment. So
You know what? Give me your answer because I think I got the actual answer.
But the only other answer I would have to counter that, where I feel like I could apportion the blame equally, is the Australian Tourist Society or whoever sanctions this crap.
Yeah.
Because look, let me tell you something. The tours are going. I know that she ventured a little farther than the tour to check out the flares, right? Mm-hmm. But she went. There wasn't any like warning from the Tourist Society saying, if you see flares, don't go a mile up that road. So whoever mapped out where you're allowed to go and not go didn't block off the area where it's sacred land, where they're carving giant crocodiles on the rocks for hundreds of years to warn people not to go there. When they go in, they're like, this is a spiritual area. And then when they land on the island, Sam Worthington's character is like, everyone's else is like, let's just chill on the island. He's like, no, this crocodile is aggressive. We're in his territory. He's mad. He feels like we're moving in. Yeah, you're in his territory. From a tour. That society's got to go. They effed up.
I'll say whoever put that bomb-ass crocodile painting on the wall is to blame. Because you're basically saying... Because listen, it's basically a billboard. It's an Australian billboard to check out what's over here. And if that wasn't there, nobody would be interested.
Right, because that's not a deterrent to people.
Yeah, you see, giant crocodile.
Outback. Oh, that's cool.
Let's go check it out.
Yeah, let's go check this out.
So,
what would you paint on a rock in the Australian outback to warn people not to go?
I would do that really weird Walking Dead thing. I would say, "Don't alligator inside." That's what I would put on the door. With chains and stupid shit.
Don't alligator
Don't alligator inside.
I can't top that. So that's the perfect thing to put up there. All right, beautiful.
Well, that's...
So I love this movie, and I hope anyone who hasn't seen it, who checks it out, enjoys it at least somewhat as much as we do.
And if giant alligators or crocodiles freak you out, and you decide to yourself, hey, I'd rather stay at a horror hotel, well, we got just the game for you. Mm-hmm. So right now, we have Telltale Midnight, the interactive horror game, live on Patreon. And we were at Camp Hollow Weekly, then we went to No Mercy Hospital, and now we find ourselves in the horror hotel. Last episode I had to cut out. I kept calling it Motel Hell, which was completely wrong.
Nope.
So the horror hotel, and we moved it from Slack, which if you run a business is great, but not good for what we were doing.
Nope.
We moved over to Discord, which is in cahoots with Patreon. So when you sign up for your tier, you'll automatically be thrown into Discord. There's a button when you sign up. It'll say get your reward. You hit that. Boom, it throws you right into the game. So no more like, what the hell is Slack? Patreon has you covered. It gets you right there, ready to see if you can survive.
Yeah, come in and join the fun. There's a bunch of people in there. They're having fun. We've added some elements to the game where there's some skill levels. If you are knowledgeable about horror, which if you're listening to this, we assume you are, you answer some trivia questions, you get extra lives. It's a blast. So it's literally $1 minimum to come in and try it out. So go to Patreon, check it out. We'd love to see you in there.
And that is patreon.com/HollowWeekly. And until next time, watch some giant scary monster movies. Get ready for the Meg. And until next time, stay scary. Bye, guys.
Movie theater. Interior crocodile alligator. I drive a Chevrolet movie theater. Interior crocodile alligator. I drive a Chevrolet movie theater.